Hi, I'm Colin Greenwood from the band Radiohead, and I'd like to thank Jarvis and the good people of Radio 6 for inviting me to play some of my favourite music on this special Sunday afternoon slot. I've loved listening into 6, and I'm chuffed to have been asked. So I hope you like some of my picks. I've gone for music that's been recommended to me by my friends, a bit like those great mixtapes that were once passed around by everyone in school and college. I'm going to be playing a bit of African, American, English and French and everything in between. Some of it has indirectly served to inspire Radiohead too, well in my small world at least. I hope this mixtape of mixtapes works for your Sunday, whether you're recovering from last night's fun or stealing up for tomorrow. And speaking of Saturday night, that last track was the ultimate musical thank you note to send your host, Ween's Your Party. Next up, we're going to listen to Shanks and Bigfoot's Chocolate Boy. I heard this a little while ago at a party played by Kieran Hebden, aka Fortet. He's turned me on to a lot of great music, some of which I'll be playing for you later. Hello, I'm Colin Greenwood from Radiohead and you're listening to my Sunday service. This remix of Rufus Wainwright's Lost in Tiergarten was a tour bus favourite on the last Radiohead excursion, and I love how it apes the old school 12-inch remixes by shamelessly stretching it out with a great bass line at the end. Unsurprisingly, I like the bass. I love how it's a soulful link in the music between the vocals and the beats. And this tune really helped me a lot with one of our songs called Everything in Its Right Place. It helped me see how it could have a similar 12-inch remix vibe when we played the song live. That was Super Mayer's remix of Rufus Wainwright's Lost in Tiergarten. And this track coming up is called A Little Bit of Jazz by Nick Straker, and it's a track I love, and it was from a disco mixtape amazingly given to me by Q-Tip a few years ago. He'd popped into Oxford to meet up with our producer Nigel, and I was entertaining him with herbal tea whilst Nigel was on an errand to check out an old mixing desk. I was having a thing for disco at the time, and early spare sounding house music as well, and I just love this with its florid synth bass sounds. So coming up after this is A Little Bit of Jazz by Nick Straker Band.
Hello, I'm C6 Steve.
That was A Little Bit of Jazz by Nick Straker Band, and I think that was a Frankie Knuckles mix as well, so fantastic. Another disco track I love is Sheila B. and Devotion's Spacer, produced by Nile Rodgers and Nard Edwards. I loved watching the Chic gig at Glastonbury. It was really cool with so many amazing songs. And the singer, of course, is Sheila B., and you just can't have enough of French singers speaking second language haughtily over the best groove possible. And now here's one of my first ever record buys. It's by the Cocteau Twins and it's called IKEA Guinea. I remember Tom and I going to go and see them at the new theatre in Oxford on 85, I think. It was such a great show, and then waiting for them to come back on with the encores was this massive 2-reel tape recorder that was playing all the beats centre stage, slowly spinning back so that they could start up again. It was fantastic. IKEA Guinea by the Cocteau Twins. So that was on my first ever record buys. That was IKEA Guinea by the Cocteau Twins. This is Colin Greenwood from Radiohead, and you're listening to the Sunday service with a mixtape of my favourite mixtapes. And now it's time for the BBC 6 Music News. Hi, welcome back. This is Colin from Radiohead, and I hope you're enjoying my Sunday service with my mixtape of mixtapes. That was Donna Summer with Lucky. I'm a big fan of Giorgio Moroder and his production and music, and believe it or not, he's been a massive influence for me when we've been working on new tunes with Radiohead. Coming up next is the stately Fu Manchu by Desmond Dekker. It's been another long-standing tour favourite at home, on the bus or dressing room. Another of my musical curators for this afternoon's show is my brother Johnny's guitar tech of 20 years, Mr. Duncan Swift. When it all gets too much on tour on the band bus and the others have had enough of me, I love to get on the backline bus and kick back in the back lounge with Duncan and friends listening to his tunes over a cold cider. Duncan has amassed a fabulous reggae collection after traipsing the world putting up with my brother. And when we're back at home, he hosts a skanking night where I've heard some great tunes. Last week we had Glenn Brown doing a version of Isaac Hayes' Do Your Thing, and here's Milton Henry with Let the Sun Shine In. That was Milton Henry with Let the Sun Shine In, courtesy of Duncan's voluminous reggae collection. Toots and the Maytals did this cover of one of my favourite older Radiohead tracks for the Radio Dread covers album. I remember where we were the first time we heard it, which was backstage upstairs at the Tower Theatre in Philadelphia, warming up for the In Rainbows tour, and we were really blown away and so honoured to hear Toots sing our song. So here it is, Toots and the Maytals with Let Down. So that was John Holt with Riding for a Fall. Okay, I'm going to play a few African tracks, some recommended by Kieran and Dan Snaith from Caribou. They were kind enough to put together a couple of brilliant mixtapes for a blog I wrote about my trip to South Africa in January to help support and find out more about a charity I've been working with called the Children's Radio Foundation. It works with community radio stations in South Africa to give kids a voice on programmes broadcast every week about their lives and their communities. It's a massively empowering project, and I'll be playing some of their stories and a whole bunch of great South African tunes next week. This one is one of my favourites. It's by a band called Batsumi, which means hunters, and the track's called Mam Shanyana. That was Batsumi from South Africa, meaning hunters, with their track Mam Shanyana. And now back to the mixtape. I think I got this one from Kieran from Fortet. It's not from South Africa, but it's still top, and it's Thomas Matfumo and the Blacks Unlimited, and it's called Gwingdingwi Rine Shumba Shumba. Coming up after this.
BBC Radio.
Hello, I'm Colin Greenwood from Radiohead, and you're listening to my Sunday service here on Radio 6 Music. Here's an edit of Enjoy Your Life by Obi Onyoha, courtesy of Dan Caribou. We toured with Caribou on the King of Limbs dates, and we had the best time with the most courteous and polite of Canadians. They could almost have been English. Here's the track. So that was Enjoy Your Life, courtesy of a mixtape from Dan from Caribou. Thank you, Dan. Right, another disco dance floor track from Africa here, and it's from Kieran's mixtape. It's Dizzy K and Excuse Me, Baby. So that was All of the Night by Linda Laws, Slow Down for Ultimate Camp. I heard this played by DJ Harvey, who's one of my favourite DJs, whom I've never seen, but his playlist on Tim Sweeney's Beats in Space website was my soundtrack for our spring 2008 tour in South America with Kraftwerk. Next up, we've got Contact by Serge Gainsbourg, featuring Brigitte Bardot with a transfusion of mercury. We loved this when we were working on B-sides for OK Computer, and the disciplined groove of top players on this track repeating their parts, something we've always loved with artists like Talking Heads too, such as on Once in a Lifetime. Anyway, here's Contact by Serge Gainsbourg. So that was Contact by Serge Gainsbourg with Brigitte Bardot, and coming up now is a Daphne track, aka Dan from Caribou, and it's from his album Xiaolong, and it's the second track called Cosbezam Nenoya. I hope I pronounced that halfway right, and it's a fantastic edit of a great African track. Right, coming up next is Junior Walker and the All-Stars. They're my favourite Motown band because I'm such a fan of the bass player James Jamerson, of course, but also because he was amongst his peers here playing with the best and having fun at the same time. And I love records with audience noise on, which is what this has got. And this is a great yelp in the middle when the song's kicking off in the club. Hi, this is Colin Greenwood from Radiohead, and you're listening to Sunday Service. I'm playing a mixtape of my favourite mixtapes, and it's time for the news.
This is BBC.
Welcome back, and this is Colin Greenwood from Radiohead with my Sunday service of my mixtape of mixtapes. That was Bela Lugosi's Dead, 12-inch by Bauhaus. And this is a song that I loved as a very semi-teenage, half-hearted goth. And it's a track that we still listen to as a band after shows, and sometimes when we're in the studio too. It's fantastic. So this is by the Belgian flautist and explorer of all things analog, Joel van Drugenbroek, and the track's called Carol's Manor. And this track would keep me very happily in bed on a Sunday afternoon, or any afternoon in fact. So that track, Carol's Manor, was from a brilliant mixtape by a friend of a friend called Dean. Thank you, Dean. And it's a compilation of great tunes from, I guess, mid-70s European, slightly proggy, a bit folky, and all just wonderful. And now coming up is another track from that compilation, which is not from any of those periods. It's in fact American, but still brilliant. And it's called Rainmaker by Nielsen. So that was Rainmaker by Nielsen, and coming up now is a track that, as I said before, my brother Johnny and I love all things French and 60s, like Dutronc, Francis Vai, Serge Gainsbourg. So here's one of our favourite tracks, and it's by Michel Polnareff, and it's called Ballade pour toi, Ce que je cherche est en toi, and it's from the album Love Me, Please Love Me. So that was Peter Green with Fleetwood Mac playing Dragonfly, and now we're going to America to listen to Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young with an outtake of Wooden Ships from record Four-Way Harmonies. I love this track. I love the bass, of course, by Stills, and the noodly guitar startup, which reminds me of my brother Johnny. Sometimes when you're recording stuff that doesn't make it out of the studio, it can have magic too, because it's looser and more freed up. And here it is. So this is going to be the last track that we're going to play this weekend on my Sunday service, which I've had a total blast doing, and it's a very relaxing Sunday song, and it's one that I really loved when I was working at our price in the 90s and going out very occasionally to evening parties in fields around Oxfordshire before the government ballsed it all up. So this track is called Spiritual High, and it's by Mood Swings, and this is how I discovered Donna Summer as well, because it's got brilliant State of Independence samples singing out at the end of the track. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you to all my friends and colleagues who recommended all this brilliant music, and I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to playing some great music from South Africa next weekend. Here's Mood Swings with their track Spiritual High.